For over a century, we've known it as one of the most vital shipping routes on Earth. It's an 82-kilometer marvel of engineering that literally changed the world. But today, the Panama Canal is facing its biggest challenge since it was first carved right through the mountains.
I mean, seriously, what happens? It's a question nobody really thought to ask until now. For the very first time, this crucial artery of global trade, which, relies entirely on fresh water, is being threatened by an existential drought. And that's sparking a crisis with consequences for all of us.
And the impact? Oh, it was immediate and it was severe. At the peak of the crisis in 2024, as the water levels just plummeted, the cost of shipping on some key routes shot up by an incredible 400%. That sent massive shockwaves through our already fragile supply chains. The world just watched as this massive traffic jam of container ships. We're talking about ships carrying something like $270 billion worth of goods every year. They got stuck in lines that stretched out for weeks, all just waiting for their turn to pass through a waterway that was literally drying up. It got so desperate that the competition for the few available spots to cross turned into this high-stakes auction. And to jump the queue, one shipper paid a record-breaking premium of nearly $4 million. And that's on top of the regular toll, just for a single trip through. So, how in the world did we get here? And more importantly, what happens next? Well, in this explainer, we're going to cover the canal's incredible history, the climate crisis that's threatening its very future, the new race for alternatives, and what all of this means for the new map of global trade. Let's dive in. To really understand the scale of today's crisis, you first have to appreciate just how revolutionary the Panama Canal actually was. I mean, this wasn't just some project, this was a dream that was 500 years in the making.
Yeah, the idea of cutting through this narrow strip of land goes all the way back to the 1500s. But it took centuries of ambition and failure, including a totally disastrous attempt by the French in the 1880s that cost thousands of lives, before the United States finally stepped up in 1904. And they completed one of the most difficult and ambitious engineering feats in all of human history. For President Teddy Roosevelt, this was about way more than just trade. It was a bold geopolitical power play. See, by linking the Atlantic and the Pacific, the U.S. could move its navy and its merchant ships between two oceans, cementing its rise as a global superpower. For the first time, a country could really control both seas. So the real genius behind the canal is its lock system. You see, instead of trying to dig a sea-level trench through a massive mountain range, which is pretty much impossible, the engineers decided to build a water bridge. They dammed up a river to create this huge artificial lake, Gatun Lake, 85 feet above sea level. The only question was, how do you get a giant ship up there? And this is where it gets really cool. The solution is just so simple and elegant. It's basically a staircase for ships. A vessel sails into a sealed chamber, water flows in from the level above, using only gravity, no pumps, and the ship rises. You do that 3 times, the ship sails across the lake, and then the whole process is just reversed on the other side to lower it back down. It's pure physics, lifting the world's biggest ships over a continent. And today, the canal is still the linchpin of the global economy. It handles over 5% of all maritime trade in the entire world. And the United States? Well, it's by far the biggest customer. About 3/4 of all the traffic going through the canal is either coming from or heading to a U.S. port. It's the main highway connecting the East Coast with Asia. Now, for the country of Panama itself, the canal is so much more than just infrastructure. It's the absolute foundation of its entire economy. We're talking up to 8% of the country's GDP. In 2024, it brought in almost $5 billion in revenue. It's the engine that powers the whole nation. But that entire engine, that whole amazing system, it runs on just one thing: fresh water. And that's a resource that is suddenly and very dangerously in short supply. Okay, this is the crucial point. Every single time a ship passes through the canal, an average of 52 million gallons of fresh water gets drained from Gatun Lake and then just flushed out to sea. That's 200 million liters per ship. It's a staggering amount of water, and it has to come from somewhere. Now, for a century, that wasn't a problem. The rainfall in Panama's lush rainforests always refilled the lake. But now, climate change is messing with that delicate balance. In 2023 and 2024, a really severe drought, made even worse by the El Niño weather pattern, caused the lake's water levels to drop to the lowest they've been in decades. Suddenly, the canal's water supply wasn't a guarantee anymore. The Panama Canal Authority had no choice but to take some pretty drastic steps. They slashed the number of ships that could pass through each day from a normal of 38 all the way down to just 24. They even forced ships to carry less cargo so they'd ride higher in the water. And this wasn't just a local problem. This was a global economic crisis in the making, and it raised serious questions about whether the canal could even be reliable in our changing climate. So, all this uncertainty? It's a massive problem for global shipping. But for other countries, well, it's a once-in-a-century opportunity. This crisis has kicked off a race to build a new shortcut for the world. And believe me, the competition is heating up. First off, Panama isn't just sitting back and watching this happen. The Canal Authority is pushing forward with a huge $1.6 billion project to build a brand new reservoir. The whole goal is to create another major water source for Gatun Lake, one that can guarantee at least 36 ships can pass through a day, even in a drought, and basically secure the canal's future for the next 50 years. But its neighbors, they sense an opening, and the most credible challenger right now is Mexico, with its interoceanic corridor. So instead of a new waterway, Mexico is building what they call a dry canal. It's a 308-kilometer modernized railway that acts like a land bridge between the two oceans. The idea is really simple. A ship docks on the Pacific coast, its containers get loaded onto a train, they get railed across Mexico in about 9 hours, and then they're put back on another ship on the Atlantic coast. And this table really illustrates the new choice that shipping companies are facing. Panama can handle a huge volume of cargo in one single trip, but Mexico is offering speed and reliability. It completely avoids the water problem and the risk of getting stuck in a queue. A recent test run actually claimed the Mexican route saved about 5 days in total travel time and cut logistics costs by 15%. And the competition doesn't stop with Mexico. Colombia is looking into its own rail-based land bridge. For years, Nicaragua had this dream of a massive $64 billion canal of its own, although that project is pretty much dead now. And way up north, climate change is ironically opening up new sea routes through the Arctic. But for now, they're still really hazardous, and you can only use them part of the year. So, what does this all add up to? What does it mean for the future of how stuff moves around our planet? Well, for the first time in more than 100 years, the world actually has options. Here's the key takeaway. The Panama Canal is still going to be a vital artery for commerce, but its time as the unchallenged king of the hill is probably coming to an end. This crisis has exposed its biggest weakness, and in doing that, it's created this new, more competitive world where companies can choose their route based on what matters most to them: cost, speed, or reliability. And that leaves us with a really fascinating final question, doesn't it? The whole 20th century was about building one single perfect shortcut. But maybe, just maybe, in an era of climate change and fierce competition, the future of trade isn't about one perfect route, but about learning how to navigate a world with many different routes, each with its own set of pros and cons.